Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Thank you for stopping by. We're all excited here with the imminent arrival of the Pope. He has taken off, and I think he's somewhere over Africa as we speak. And I just outside my windows where they're going to hold, I think, an open air service. So I'm going to hopefully watch it all from up here. I'm looking forward to hosting the inestimable Kiprono Kittony, chairman of the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce. That's this Saturday. Mind speakers are free to attend forum. We serve breakfast from 9:30. We start at 10 a.m. And looking forward to that. There seems to be a bit of a spat between the KEPSA and the Kenya Chamber, according to today's paper. So a little bit of excitement ahead of that Mind Speak session. What is MindSpeak? Have a look at that if you haven't had a chance to see it yet. I'd like to thank Ambassador de Bilderling, Belgian Ambassador to Kenya, for an, as always, wonderful King's Day in Nairobi. They have the most beautiful house. Have a look at this photograph that I took as we were leaving. And she asked for a minute's silence and then named all the places where terrorism had occurred in the recent past, from Paris to Bamako to Garissa. Very inclusive statement. I thoroughly enjoyed the farewell cocktail for Dr. Christian Turner, a friend and the British High Commissioner who is now returning to the United Kingdom. Very witty speech he made as well. It was a pleasure meeting Peter Woofley, who was the CEO of UBS 2001 through 2007. Amongst many other accomplishments, and he spoke about horizontal leadership and much more. Very interesting this morning. Home Thoughts. I like this photograph by Mutua Matheka. Minimal mountains and the peaking sun. Samburu in the morning light is a beauty that needs to be seen. It is a beautiful place, Samburu. If you ever get a chance, do visit it. Then I was reading a review in the London Review of Books, and listen to this. True paranoid is defined as someone from whom all is organized in spheres, joyful or threatening, about the central pulse of himself. The idea of humanity gravity's rainbow implies is a paranoid fantasy. Strip it away, and all you have left are death, sex, and the law of physics. The place where they intersect is the black hole at the novel's core, around which the plots and the paranoia orbit in a centripetal swirl. Now, obviously, the big situation is Putin and Erdogan going toe-to-toe. I think Erdogan is playing a game of escalation, like he tried to with the President of the United States, when the President of the United States named his red line as being chemical weapons use in Syria. And I think a false flag operation was conducted at that time, you will remember, and that's why President Obama stepped back from that brink and negotiated that settlement with Putin regarding Syria. Putin has gas and tourism with which to inflict pain. A lot of Russian tourists go to Turkey, and he supplies them with a lot of gas. He said in a meeting with King Abdullah in Sochi, we received a stab in the back from accomplices of terrorism. We understand that everyone has their own interests, but we won't allow such crimes to take place. We received a stab in the back from accomplices of terrorism. Putin spoke after Turkey said 2 F-16 jets shot down a Russian warplane that violated its airspace near the border with northwestern Syria. Russia's defense ministry denied the plane had ever crossed the border and said it may have been hit by ground fire. Turkey's action is the first time in decades that a member of NATO has downed a Russian military aircraft. CNN Turk English tweeted a photograph of the aircraft being downed. Let me put that up. Russian President Putin said the plane had been attacked when it was 1 kilometer inside Syria and warned of serious consequences for what he termed a stab in the back administered by the accomplices of terrorists. Patrick Coven in the Independent Turkey must have been eager to shoot down a Russian aircraft. I think they were. Even going by the Turkish account of what happened, as illustrated by a Turkish map of the route of the Russian plane, would only briefly have been in Turkish airspace as it crossed a piece of Turkish territory that projects into Syria. Why would Turkey do this? Probably because Ankara has become increasingly furious since Russian airstrikes started in Syria on the 30th of September. Russian jets were routinely invading its airspace. The Turkish government also knows that its policy since 2011 of getting rid of President Assad has failed, and that it has a diminishing influence in events in Syria as Russia, the US, France, and possibly in the near future, Britain, increase their military involvement in Syria. And I think that's completely correct. They had big dreams for a no-fly zone, and if Russia is right up against the border, it's not giving much room for that no-fly zone. But of course, it was Rana Harbi who tweeted, "Ankara is protecting ISIS, Turkey financially benefiting from illegal oil trade with the terrorist group." And Russia had bombed a lot of these trucks just in the immediate past before this plane was shot down. Russia is deploying a missile cruiser off the Syrian coast. Moskva, equipped with the Fort air defense system similar to the S-300, will be deployed off Latakia province's coast. "We warn that every target posing a potential threat will be destroyed," said Lieutenant General Sergei Rudskoy. So we got a very, very flashpoint type situation. I think the Russians will want to deliver a very bloody nose in response. That's the nature of geopolitics, so we've got to keep an eye out for that response and whether it's calibrated or not. It's obviously a very, very fluid situation, but essentially I think this was Erdogan lashing out at a situation where the circumstances had moved away from him and his ability to control and seize a no-fly zone within Syria as well. État-major armée, nouvelle frappe contre Daesh on Syria. This is the aeroplanes, French aeroplanes, Rafales taking off. I think it's Rafales taking off to bomb ISIS. And then an interesting tweet I saw on Risk Insights, ISIS is threatening Saudi Arabia. Now, I was tongue-in-cheek, but I wasn't yesterday when I said, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that Russia is egging Putin on, Saudi Arabia is egging Putin on, knowing full well if he doesn't put a stop to IS, they can turn and detour to Riyadh. Jamie McGee at Reuters, underlying GDP growth in China could be 50 to 150 basis points lower than reported. This is Barclays. Now I was saying the same thing in August this year when I said, the further problem is that no one believes the Chinese data. This moment when the market stops suspending its disbelief is seriously a dangerous one for policymakers. Let's move on to the currency markets. Euro had got to about 106.80. It's now at 106.34. Dollar index around the 99.35 level. Japanese yen 122.50. Swissy 101.47. The pound 150.89. Aussie has been on the mend lately, but still up on the day, 0.7257. India rupee 66.356. South Korean won 1143.22. Rial 369.76. Egyptian pound 783.01 and the rand 1406.32. A lot of data came out of South Africa. We'll get to that momentarily. Let me put up a 3-month chart of the dollar index and reiterate the point that a rate hike in December in illiquid markets has the potential to amplify and dramatize any moves. So we've got to be watching very carefully. I'm surprised that the US Fed is considering such a move in such a month. Euro dollar 106.34, 35, still bouncing off that 7-month low. just below 106. Commodity markets, gold got a little bit of a pop on this increased geopolitical stress. This morning was at 1079, it's back at 1075 now. I think it still trades bearishly. Crude oil, that's also had a pop higher, US crude 42.75, and it's been lifted off the lows on geopolitical concerns as well. Jonathan Ferro, iron ore drops to a fresh 2015 low. It's very much been a leader of late. Sub-Saharan Africa, Pope Francis will step onto African soil for the first time on Wednesday, and there's plenty of excitement in the city. I am limit long Pontifex. I think he's absolutely brilliant. I'll put up a photograph of him that I found. Obviously, everybody's looking forward to him. One of his events will be just outside my window. China is Africa's largest trading partner, and the trade volume between them amounted to $220 billion in 2014, according to Xinhua. Xi is scheduled to meet Zimbabwe's President Mugabe on December the 1st and December the 2nd, and then meet with Jacob Zuma December the 2nd and December the 3rd, and he's going to co-chair a two-day summit between China and African countries in Johannesburg. This African trip by President Xi Jinping will be the most important, comprehensive and valuable visit in recent years. Xi visited Africa in 2013, shortly after he took office as president. Africa 24 Media tweeted Ian Smith announces he is ready to yield to majority rule in Rhodesia. That was 1977. DRC lowered its 2015 economic growth forecast to 7.7% from an earlier prediction of 8.4%. The economy of Africa's largest copper producer grew by 9.5% in 2014. They had predicted growth of 10.3% for 2015, and just that was in May. South African all share fell 0.72% yesterday, but remains 4.11% higher this year, outperforming its other sub-Saharan African peers. GDP was up 0.7% in the third quarter, after contracting 1.3% in the 3 months to June. GDP expanded by 1% on a year-on-year basis, compared with 1.2% previously. Dollar Rand is held in there around the 14.06 level. I'll put up a 3-month chart. Egyptian pound steady at 783.01. The Egyptian EGX 30 fell sharply yesterday. It's now down 29.18% year to date. The Nigerian NPC has reduced the borrowing rate from 13 to 11%. I agree with John Ashbourne, who said it is difficult to overstate the degree to which this is a highly unorthodox move. Nigeria faces high inflation, pressure on its currency, desperately needs to attract foreign capital to fund the current account deficit. It is, in short, exactly the sort of situation which economists would generally expect and recommend tighter monetary policy. It's hard to see this set of policies succeeding in the long run, said Charles Robertson, the chief economist of Renaissance Capital. Paul Wallace kindly tweeted an image of the interest rates in Nigeria. Let me put that up. The Nigerian all-share is just 0.733% above a 2015 low and is minus 20.37% this year. Ghana Stock Exchange down 12.87% this year. New faces in Kenya's cabinet as Uhuru sacks suspended ministers, named a 20-member cabinet, seen 3 politicians make it to government, sacked all the 5 suspended cabinet secretaries, Charity Ngilu, Michael Kamau, Davis Churcher, Felix Koske, and Kazungu Kambi, who are facing corruption allegations and charges. Mr. Kenyatta has named Kericho Senator Charles Keter as Cabinet Secretary for Energy and Petroleum. Malindi MP Dan Kazungu and former Laikipia East MP Mwangi Kunjuri nominated to the mining and devolution dockets respectively. Mr. Kazungu becomes the second opposition MP to be poached by President Kenyatta. named 46 principal secretaries, and a bunch of new appointments included the Nairobi Hospital CEO Cleophas Mailu, who has replaced James Macharia as the Cabinet Secretary for Health. Joe Mucheru, who's a friend of mine, is on the floor below. Former Google executive takes the ICT docket. Long overdue. I think some folks would have preferred to see a bunch of newer names, but let's see how this now develops. ICA's reported first half earnings per share was down 18.92%. Market cap is 803 million shillings. Revenue up 6.48%. Profit for the period down 20.57%. But what you've got to look at is the net asset value, and it's a very cheap share on that basis. You're talking about a total land area of 385 hectares at a cost of 800 million shillings. That's the arbitrage I've spoken about, which pertains to a number of these agricultural companies. Kenya shilling 102.185. Nairobi all share tumbled 1.13% yesterday, snapping a winning streak going back to the 4th of November. It's down 10.39% this year. NSE 20 closed above 4,000 for the second session, eased back 0.01%. Mutua Matheka again, Travel Tuesday, Samburu, another photograph. If you're interested in checking any share at the Nairobi Securities Exchange, the link is there. The Nairobi All Share had rallied 7.53% in November through yesterday morning, snapped a winning streak going back to November the 4th. NSE 20, as I said, closed above 4,000 for the second time. And the last time it did this was on October the 9th. Shilling remains well behaved. Safaricom, which had done some serious heavy lifting, rallying 16.72% November 5 through yesterday morning, paused for breath and closed 3% lower. Kenya Airways up 4.35%. Nation Media, that's rallied 5.147% over 2 sessions. EABL unchanged. It was good to catch up with Charles after a long absence. ARM has rallied 20.4% this month alone, and Mumia Sugar up 17.24% since November the 18th. So, what have we got going on? We've got the Pope coming to town. Everyone's terribly excited about that. We also have Mind Speak on Saturday, where I hope to see you. Remember, the breakfast is from 9:30, if that's what you fancy. And we've got Kiprono, Kittony, who's a very interesting Pan-Africanist and exponent of economic diplomacy. So looking forward to that as well. Hope to see you soon.